My name is Laura Shafer, and I started volunteering here at this museum in November last year. I wandered in and said, "You guys want some help?" And I started doing some research for our cemetery walks that happened last week, and they were looking for fires. But while I was flipping through the newspaper clippings looking for fires, I found a great obituary from 1901, which is right behind Robert, about an Indian chief who is buried behind our local hospital. And it just fascinated me, the style of the writing, and I've been working with a group who were putting on events every year for what Sebastopol calls Pomo Honoring Month. We have the city, it's a group of artists and educators who try and bring Native American history to the public and say there were Indians who lived here, history did not start in 1850. There is deeper history, and people dig it up all the time. There's a whole slew of projectiles there that were found out behind our high school by early settlers here. And so I came into the museum as a volunteer and asked if they'd be interested in a Native American exhibit down the road. And they had some about 10 years ago, and it was time to revisit it. And they said, "Sure, how about this August, can you start?" And wow. And I'm not a historian by trade. I studied art history in college, but my dad is a history teacher, so I have a deep love of history, and it was a real interesting thing to sort of wake my brain up, and I went on a crash course of Sonoma County history. I'm not native to Sonoma County. I am native Californian, but only because I was born here. My ancestors came from all over Europe. But I am interested in Native American history because I didn't learn it very much in the California school system except for the missions. And when I moved to Sonoma, I didn't even know what the tribes were called. So I got involved with this group in 2010 that was doing Pomo events, and I started going to lectures and learning things from real Indians who live in this area about what it was like before the first Euro-American settlers arrived. And so I was able to pull together the images that you see on the wall. The old photograph there actually came from a postcard from between the walls of my house. I live in an old house here in Sebastopol, and we were remodeling, and all this historical stuff started coming out of the walls. And it's right over here around the corner, the original postcard with my notes. And through the power of the internet, I was able to find out who he is and why his picture is one of the Yosemite Miwok Indians in the 30s and 40s who gave lectures and talks about Indian knowledge. And there's a whole book on the internet you can download now, which helped me with my research. So I did a whole bunch of crash course research about the history here, and then at one point decided not to just tell white man's history version, but to allow the Indians to use their own words. And so luckily, from the Pomo Honoring Month events, I had recorded a lecture by Greg Saris, who is the chairman of the local tribe here, the Federated Great Rancheria Indians. And so we used quotes from his lecture about this specific area of Sebastopol, and then also Vanna Lawson. We recorded her last lecture. She is a Kashaya Pomo, the daughter of Essie Parrish, who was one of the last great spiritual leaders of the Kashaya Pomo. Had an Indian wife, so her family was a little bit more predisposed to letting Indians continue to camp on their traditional lands and work the ranch until they had moved most of the Indians out of here up to the reservation of Covelo in the 1850s. The 1870 census shows no Indians in Sebastopol at all. The 1860 census shows about 25 Indians, and they're all under the age of 25, and most of them are listed as indentured servants. So you can see from the numbers, and even 1- and 2-year-olds were indentured servants, that their life was very interrupted here, and basically disappeared when Sebastopol incorporated in 1901. The last traditional Indian cremation was said to have taken place up on Calder Hill, which is, if you go straight up from the post office, that's Calder Hill. But the Indians started burying their dead as soon as they got Christianized in the missions. And so they now do have some of their ancestors out here in the Laguna, and they fought very hard not to have development out there. Behind Palm Drive Hospital, there's a really nice area called the Laguna Upland that in 1995 was a fierce city battle about development, whether a large, what we call McMansions, houses were gonna go in there with the great Laguna view, or it was gonna stay open space forever because Indian ancestors are buried there. So I